Hi there, it's Jenna from scribblinggrace.com. Today I'm doing a Bible journaling with me video on how I painted this watercolor landscape scene. First off, right off the bat, I want to give credit to Zanina Nabil. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. She has a Skillshare class that I took that is watercolor landscapes, and that's where I got the idea for this. So I definitely want to give full credit to her. I did change things up a little bit and simplify things, but she had the original concept idea of this. So she's Aurora by Z on Instagram, and I'll put links to where you can find her stuff in the description below so I can give credit to her. So I am going to start off by just freehand sketching my mountains. I'm doing two mountains from the outside corners into the center of my Bible journaling page. And I pretty much have these right in the center. They're both horizontally and vertically. So it might be a little bit lower. The bottom of those mountains is a little bit lower than center point. But all I'm doing for the mountains is just two triangle shapes going towards the center. And I'm just taking my pencil and kind of waving it a little bit so that they're not perfectly straight lines. And then I'm drawing just kind of a super simple wavy road. And this sketch will just kind of act as my guide on where I'm going to do my painting. I'm also keeping my pencil marks super light because once you add watercolor on top of them, you won't be able to erase the pencil, and so you want to make sure that you won't be able to see the pencil underneath the watercolor. So you kind of might have to look really closely to even see my pencil marks there, but you can definitely see them. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and pick out some watercolors from my Kirtaki Gansai Tambi watercolor set. I'm going to use a couple blues, a bright blue and a really dark deep blue that's more of a grayish blue. I'm going to use a lime green color and a darker green color and a few reds and oranges as well. I will find the names to the colors that I'm using and put those names in the blog post that goes along with this video at scribblinggrace.com/watercolorlandscape. I'll also put all the links to other supplies that I used throughout this video so that you can create a page just like this. And I'll put that link to the blog post in the description below, so be sure to head on over there and check that out. While I'm gathering my watercolors here, I just want to say that this page may look a little intimidating and it may be a little bit more difficult than most of my other Bible journaling tutorials. I try to keep my tutorials super simple and super beginner friendly because I really want anyone to be able to create Bible journaling pages, and I really want to encourage you to create Bible journaling pages. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to do this tutorial because mainly because I didn't want the beginner to look at it and say, oh, I can't do that, and just write it off. And in the past, in my more advanced tutorials, I don't get as much views and things like that. Not that that matters all that much, but I want to make sure that I'm serving my followers and my audience. So after I posted on Instagram asking if I should do the tutorial, the answer was yes, yes, yes. So I'm going ahead and I'm doing this tutorial, and I just want to encourage you as we're beginning that if you're watching, thank you so much for watching. And I want to encourage you that you can do this. Try. Even if it turns out terribly the first time, just try again. It just takes practice. I am not a painter. I hardly know what I'm doing. I'm a pretty good faker. But anyways, I just really want to encourage you that you can do this. The only way that we can get better at painting and art is by trying and by practice. If you never try it, you're never going to get better at it. So, all right, I'll jump off my soapbox now. So we're going to start off with the sky. So if you're watching me, I took a flat paintbrush. I believe this is about a 1/2 inch, maybe a 3/4 inch flat paintbrush. And I took just clean water and added water to the sky portion of my painting. So I stopped just before I got to the pencil marks where my mountains are. And then I am adding in the sky colors. So I'm going to do 2 layers. This is one of my big tips with watercolors, is to work with layers. So if something isn't perfect right away, you can let that dry and then do it again. You'll add more depth to the painting and also fill out that page a little bit better. So I'm just going back and forth between my two blue colors that I have here. And then at the bottom towards the mountains, I added a little yellow and a little pink. Um, though I just kind of wanted a very tiny little hint of the yellow and pink, so that isn't a huge focal point of my painting, but that's something there. If you wanted to totally change this and make it a different color sky, add a lot more yellows, a lot more pinks, go for it. Where my sky got a little bit darker, I kind of just blotting it up with my paper towel. One of the things that with the wet on wet technique, which is where you paint the page first and then add in the watercolor, with Bible journaling it can be difficult because the pages are smooth and they don't have that toothiness that watercolor paper per se has. And so you're gonna get more wrinkles, and it's also just a little bit harder to control that water. It can dry faster. It doesn't give you the same exact look. So you just kind of want to be careful about how much water you're using. You want to use enough water to get the watercolor paint on the page, but you don't want to use so much that it's just drowning in water. So when I had a little bit too much water there, I'm just going to pick it up and with my paper towel. So while that top portion is drying, I'm going to start working on the field. So I made sure not to do the mountains yet, because if I were to do the mountains, that watercolor from the mountains would just go straight up into the sky. So I'm going to let that sky dry, and then I'm going to let this field dry before I start on the mountains so that I don't get my colors bleeding together. So for my field, I'm just using that lime green color and my darker green color. And again, I'm just kind of going back and forth between the two colors, just adding the paint into my page. There's no real rhyme or reason to how to add the paint onto the page. Just go for it. Some spots I kind of tap, and some spots I kind of smudge horizontally. And you can see I'm just kind of changing my brush around. And then leaving a little bit at the bottom for my red, I'm going to say they're poppies, but you could also say they're wildflowers at the bottom. So again, I'm just kind of just taking that paintbrush and just kind of blotting it all over that field. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in some of that red, and I'm still doing this while that green is a little bit wet, because I don't mind if the red bleeds into the green a little bit. That'll help to blend the colors a little bit more, make it look a little bit more natural rather than having a straight line of green and a straight line of red. So I'm also just kind of trying to create like a little hump, just kind of keeping it a little bit more natural. And then I'm going to add a bit of super dark green here at the bottom as well. And I'm just dabbing in a dark red and a little bit of orange as well. And this will just be the background base. This whole first layer is just the background base of this Bible journaling page. At this point, when I go to add this green, I did switch brushes to a small round paintbrush just because I'm working in a smaller space. So it's a little bit easier to control a small round paintbrush rather than that flat paintbrush. And then I'm going to go ahead and start adding my base background poppies. So again, that same small round paintbrush, and I just picked up a bunch of that red, really saturated, hardly any water, and a lot of the pigment. And I'm just using the very tip top of my paintbrush and just dabbing it around in that red section of my base layer. And this, because that red is still wet, it's still gonna, these dots are gonna blend into the background. They're gonna get a lot bigger than they originally were. But that's okay, because this is really just going to be a base, and I can add a little bit more details later on once this first layer dries. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and take this page over to my heat gun and dry it really quick, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so now that my page is all nice and dry, I'm going to go ahead and add that top layer of my sky. So this really just helps it to really pop. That first layer is this really nice little base, helps me to figure out where my color is going to go, and then adding more colors into on top of that really just makes that sky just pop off the page. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some more little sprinkles to my poppy wildflower field at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is cover the top portion of my painting with a piece of paper, or you could use a paper towel as well. And I'm picking up a lot of that red paint. Again, a little water and a lot of paint so that it's nice and pigmented. And then I'm taking another paintbrush and I'm just going to kind of bang the paintbrushes on the top so that that paint splatters off onto the page. And that paper over the top portion of the page will keep these little dots from getting all the way up to the top of the page, so so that it stays in the little field that I want it to stay in. And this just adds a little extra detail to that field in the foreground. I'll add a few more dots using that tip of my paintbrush just to finish it off, and then I'm happy with how my field looks. I'll add the road in just a little bit. But now we're going to go ahead and do the mountains. So I am going to use two different colored mountains, but you could do similar or the same color if you'd like. I'm going to do one that's green and one that's a little bit lighter in the background. So this one I'm going to do kind of a dark green, and I'm using one of the same greens that I did for my field, so I'm not using a huge ton of different colors here. And sorry, my baby's so loud today. I'm just painting in that first triangle, I suppose, of a mountain. No real rhyme or reason to how exactly I'm doing this. I do want to make sure that I have some different tones in that mountain. So some spots I want to be lighter and some spots I want to be darker. That'll give me the idea of shadows and spots where the light hits the mountain. Because no mountain is just one pure color. If you look off into the distance, they have spots where they have shadows and highlights and stuff. So that's what we're doing here. One of the things that I love about watercolor is that it's kind of hard to make something that's ugly. It's just a really forgiving medium where no matter what you do, it's still going to turn out really pretty. So again, I just want to encourage you to give this one a shot. So now that I have my first mountain painted, I'm going to go ahead and do my second mountain. For this mountain in the background, I'm going to do a mix of that dark blue-gray that I used for the sky, or yeah, blue-gray, and the green that I used for the first mountain. And I'm just kind of mixing them together on the Bible page itself rather than mixing it on a palette beforehand, but you could totally do whatever you want with it. And again, I'm just filling in the second triangle here. And because that first mountain is still wet, I'm trying to leave a little tiny gap so that my colors aren't going to bleed into each other. That way I still have my separate mountains. So this second mountain doesn't need to be as detailed either because it's in the background. And that's it for my mountains. Now I'm going to go ahead and create my road. You could totally leave the road out if you want, but I thought it would be fun to still include it. And I'm just taking my small round paintbrush and some brown watercolor paint and just using the tip of my paintbrush to create some kind of curvy road. And when I thought back about it, the verse I'm working on is Proverbs 3:5-6, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths." And so, in retrospect, I was thinking maybe I should have done a straight path, but either way, I think it works with this verse. That was the main reason why I wanted to do this painting for this page, is because I'm working on Proverbs 3:5-6. So it just seemed like it worked really well. And so I just painted my little curve. Once I got to the red part, I just lifted up. I'm not worrying too much about blending that bottom part into the red or anything like that. We're just going to let it kind of hide behind the red for the rest of it. And then I'm going to take my paint, and I'm using very, very little water. You can see I had a few globs there, so I just picked those up with a paper towel. And I'm using very, very little water and a lot of pigment with that same brown color, and I'm just adding a little bit of shadow to the the road, that just kind of helps to make it pop out. So I'm just kind of doing on the bottom edge just a little bit of that brown to make it pop. And now I'm going to go ahead and add some trees on the line between my mountains and field. These trees are super simplified because they're so far in the background. I feel like they don't need very much detail. And if you have too much detail, I feel like it might take away from the rest of the landscape. And we don't want the trees to be the focal point. We want like the mountains and the poppy field to be the focal points. So I am just using my dark green color, the tip of my paintbrush, my small round paintbrush, and I'm just swiping upward in vertical lines in different sizes. So some are smaller and some swipes will be a little bit longer to create my little forest. And I'm just gonna continue to paint these little swipes all along that line between my mountains and my field. And once I finish this forest up, that is it for my painting portion of my page. I'm going to go ahead and add some lettering, but I'm keeping my lettering super duper simple this time. Just some normal handwriting in all caps with my Uniposca white paint pen. You could also use a white gel pen, but I had the white paint pen on hand. But one thing to keep in mind with the paint pens is that they can bleed through an unprepared page. But since it's white, I don't worry if it bleeds through because you wouldn't be able to tell anyways. And I did not prep my page with anything for this page. So I'll show you the back portion of this page in just a second. All right, that is it for my page. Be sure to head on over to the blog post that goes along with this video at scribblinggrace.com/watercolorlandscape. And that's where you can find all the links to all of the supplies used and other helpful tutorials so that you can create a page just like this. And that's it. All right, I hope that you have a wonderful day. One last round of encouragement. I really just want to encourage you to give this a shot. Give it a try. I hope that you enjoy it. All right, much love and many blessings. Bye.